At 16, my family decided I wasn't worth keeping. They kicked me out, left me to fend for myself, and I walked away with nothing but a shattered heart. But now, 8 years later, I'm back, and I'm about to show them the daughter they thought they lost. They have no idea what's coming. I'm Lena Quinn. I've spent the past 8 years trying to forget the moment my family made me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't belong. They turned their backs on me for something they didn't understand. But here I am, about to walk through that door again. This time, it's on my terms, and trust me, I've changed. The person who left that house no longer exists. I remember the day they kicked me out like it happened 5 minutes ago, not 8 years ago. The look on their faces, the cold, deliberate indifference, like they had been planning it for a while. My father was the first to speak, his voice steady but full of venom, as though he was reading off a script he had rehearsed 100 times. "You've chosen this path, Lena. You don't belong here anymore." I stood there, stunned, trying to grasp what was happening. I wasn't even sure what I had done wrong. Sure, I had made some choices they didn't agree with, but none of that was enough to justify this, right? I thought we could work it out. I thought they would understand. But no, the moment I told them the truth about my life, about who I was, who I wanted to be, that was the moment they decided I was no longer their daughter, no longer part of their family. My mother didn't even look at me. She just stared at her hands, twisting them in her lap as though she had been expecting this moment. Her silence spoke volumes, louder than any of the cruel words my father had said. I could feel the weight of her disappointment crushing me, but it wasn't enough to break me. Not yet. "You're on your own now," my father continued, his words slow and deliberate, almost as if he was savoring the finality of the situation. "You've made your choices, Lena. This family isn't going to support that kind of lifestyle." I couldn't believe it. I hadn't even told them everything about who I was yet, about the dreams I had, the future I was building. But the moment I mentioned the truth, my sexuality, they turned their backs. In their eyes, I wasn't their daughter anymore. I wasn't even a person anymore. I was an inconvenience, a mistake they couldn't undo. My younger sister, Emma, sat in the corner, her face pale and tear-streaked. She had always been the golden child, the one they approved of, the one who didn't question the rules. She hadn't said a word. She didn't even look at me. I couldn't decide whether that hurt more than anything else, her silence, her abandonment. I stood there for a moment frozen. There were so many things I wanted to say, but the words caught in my throat. My hands trembled and my mind raced, but all I could do was nod slowly. I had no choice. I had to leave, and so I did. I grabbed the few belongings I had, my backpack, some clothes, a couple of books, and I walked out that door. They didn't say anything else. No goodbye, no we'll miss you. Just silence. The kind of silence that spoke volumes deeper than any words could. As I stepped out onto the porch, I felt a wave of cold air, like the universe itself was rejecting me. But in that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just leaving their house. I was leaving behind everything they represented. Their expectations, their rules, their control. I didn't look back as I walked down the driveway. I didn't look back as the door slammed shut behind me. I didn't need to. I was free. The first night was the hardest. I didn't have a plan. I had nowhere to go. I wandered the streets, my thoughts clouded with confusion and anger. How could they do this to me? How could they throw me away so easily? I sat on a park bench for hours thinking about everything I had just lost. My family, my home, my future, seemingly shattered in one devastating moment. But as the night dragged on, something shifted inside me. A quiet resolve. They didn't want me. Fine. I didn't need them either. I didn't realize it then, but that night was the beginning of something new for me. I was no longer the person they had wanted me to be. I was going to make my own way, no matter how hard it was. I was going to survive this, and I was going to come out stronger than I ever thought possible. But first, I had to survive. The next few weeks were a blur of temporary shelters, a series of nights spent on friends' couches and scraping together whatever odd jobs I could find. It was humbling, to say the least, but the sting of rejection began to fade, replaced by a new fire inside me. I couldn't explain it at first, but I could feel it. Every hardship, every struggle was building something inside me, something powerful. And then, a year later, I found myself standing on my own 2 feet. I had an apartment, a part-time job, and enough money to survive. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My life, on my terms. And that was only the beginning. I wasn't done yet. The family that rejected me would see me again one day, whether they liked it or not. It's funny how quickly life can go from utter chaos to a sense of balance. I remember the first time I looked at myself in the mirror after everything happened, after they kicked me out, and I saw someone who looked tired, broken even. But as the days went on, something changed. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about rebuilding, creating a life that no one had the right to take from me. I started working at a coffee shop downtown, just a small, low-key place, but it was a job, and that was all I needed. I woke up early, worked hard, and came home late every night. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I had control over my own destiny. The money was barely enough to cover rent, but it was a start. I didn't have any close friends in the city, not after leaving home, so I kept to myself. There were days when the loneliness would creep in. I'd find myself staring out the window of my tiny apartment, wondering where my family was and why I wasn't good enough for them to love me unconditionally. But then I would remind myself, I was better off without them. They didn't define me. The house they had thrown me out of wasn't my home anymore. I was building a new home, piece by piece, with sweat and grit. Every day, every dollar I earned felt like a victory. One evening, after a particularly exhausting shift at the coffee shop, I received a message. I didn't recognize the number, but the text was clear. "I'm sorry, Lena. We need to talk." It was from my sister, Emma, the same sister who had been silent that day, the one who hadn't said a word as our parents tore my life apart. I stood there, phone in hand, frozen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend like it never happened, to never let her back in. But another part of me, one that I hadn't quite killed off yet, felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things could be different. But I wasn't naive. I'd learned that lesson long ago. I decided to reply. "Talk? About what?" Emma's response came fast, almost too fast. "Please, Lena, I've been thinking about it. Everything that happened, I don't agree with them. I want to see you." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what she was thinking, what she wanted from me, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back to that place. I wasn't going back to that family. Not without knowing they'd changed, not without seeing some kind of remorse. I wasn't a charity case for their emotional baggage. After a few seconds of contemplation, I typed back, "I'm not the same person I was when I left. You should know that. If you want to talk, we can. But I'm not going to be your punching bag anymore." I hit send and put my phone down, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't asking for forgiveness. I wasn't asking for anything. I just wanted the truth. I wanted to know that she understood why I left, why I could never go back. Weeks passed. Each day felt like a small victory, even when the world outside seemed indifferent. I began building something for myself. I'd saved up enough to move out of my dingy apartment and into a small, more peaceful space. It wasn't much, but it felt like a fresh start. That's when I started my side hustle. I had always loved photography, but I never had the time or the resources to pursue it seriously while I was living under my parents' roof. Now, I had the time, and I was determined to make it work. I began taking freelance gigs, doing portrait shoots for people in the city, covering local events, anything I could get my hands on. Slowly, my reputation started growing. I didn't care that I was still a nobody in the grand scheme of things. For the first time in my life, I felt proud of what I was doing. It wasn't about the money, it was about creating something with my own hands, something real. My days blurred into one another. Coffee shop in the morning, photo shoots in the evening, editing until the early hours of the morning. But it felt right. I was working for something I truly cared about. I was in control of my life. And then, one day, I got an email that changed everything. It was from a small gallery in the city. They had seen my work online, and they wanted to feature me in their upcoming exhibition. My heart skipped a beat as I read through the email, barely believing what I was seeing. They wanted to display my photos? Me, Lena Quinn, the girl who had been kicked out 8 years ago, the girl who had been nothing more than a disappointment to her family. I couldn't believe it. It was the validation I never thought I'd get, the recognition I deserved. That night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. A different person stared back at me. The girl who had been abandoned, the one who used to shrink when anyone looked at her. She was gone. In her place was a woman who had survived, who had risen from the ashes. This was my moment. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. I wasn't doing this for anyone else. I wasn't doing it for my parents or for Emma or for anyone who thought I wasn't enough. I was doing this for me, and I wasn't going to stop. I made a promise to myself that night. I would never let anyone or anything hold me back again. I was ready to show the world who Lena Quinn really was. Ready to show my family just what they had lost when they let me walk away. And when the time came, they would know that I didn't need them. I had everything I needed already. Myself. It had been 2 months since I received that email from the gallery, and the exhibition was just around the corner. Things were moving fast, too fast for me to really process. I was still getting used to the idea that my work was being seen, that people were starting to take notice of what I had built from nothing. There were times when I would wake up and still feel like I was in the middle of a dream, trying to shake off the disbelief that this life, this new version of me, was real. I'd started gaining traction in the photography world. Bookings were coming in, and slowly my bank account was starting to reflect the effort I'd put in. It wasn't luxurious by any means, but I was finally feeling the sense of security that I had always craved. No more living paycheck to paycheck, no more scraping by on scraps. I was finally building something solid. But then, like a sudden storm cloud out of nowhere, my phone buzzed one evening as I was going through my usual routine. A message from Emma. "Lena, I know you're busy, but I need to talk to you, please. I'm begging you." I stared at the message for a while. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from Emma in weeks after our brief exchange about meeting up. For the first time, I wondered if I had made a mistake. If maybe, just maybe, I should have met with her back then. I had thought that if I didn't let them back in, I could finally get the closure I needed. Finally move on. I had spent so much time convincing myself I didn't need any of them. But now, seeing her message again, seeing that raw vulnerability in her words, I felt that familiar tug in my chest. Why now? What had changed? My fingers hovered over the screen for a while before I typed back, "What's going on, Emma?" Her response came almost immediately. "Mom and Dad are in trouble. I know they hurt you, but they're asking for you. I'm just trying to help. Please, can we meet?" I felt a surge of anger and confusion all at once. Mom and Dad? The same parents who kicked me out without a second thought. The ones who couldn't accept me for who I was? Now they needed me? A bitter laugh escaped my lips, but it wasn't from humor. It was from disbelief. After everything, after the hurt they caused me, now they wanted something from me? But it wasn't just about them. It was Emma, the same girl who had stood there silent that day, watching me walk out without a word. Was she really asking me to come back? To forgive them? I didn't know if I was ready for this. I had spent years building a life without them, without needing their approval. But I couldn't help it. My curiosity got the better of me. I replied, "Where do you want to meet?" She suggested a small cafe just outside the city. We had gone there a few times as kids when things were simpler, before everything fell apart. I'd never forgotten that place. It held memories of who I used to be, of the person I thought I should be. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face them or even ready to face myself in front of them. But there I was, heading out the door the next morning, my heart heavy with mixed emotions. The cafe was quieter than I remembered, tucked in the corner of a small strip mall. The sign outside still read, "Gina's Corner Cafe," in faded red letters. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee and pastries. I wasn't sure if it was the atmosphere or the memories it stirred that made my chest tighten, but I couldn't deny that a part of me wanted to escape. The door swung open as I walked in, and the familiar chime of the bell made me pause for a moment. Emma was sitting in the corner booth, looking exactly as she did the last time I saw her. Small, unsure, yet somehow still carrying that faint glow of hope in her eyes. The same girl who had once been my best friend. She stood up when she saw me, a mix of nervousness and relief crossing her face. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew she wasn't here to lecture me or to tell me I had been wrong. I could see it in the way she held her hands, wringing them together in a silent plea. "Lena," she said softly, her voice tentative, like she wasn't sure if I would even acknowledge her. I, I've missed you." I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded, unsure of what to say in return. What did she want from me? Did she expect me to just pick up where we left off, pretending that nothing had ever happened? I sat down across from her, the weight of everything hanging between us. The distance that had grown over the years felt like a chasm now, impossible to cross. "Emma," I started, my voice steady but heavy with emotion. "What's going on? Why are you asking for me now?" She sighed, and for the first time I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She had grown up just like I had, but in a different way. There was no naive child in front of me now. She was an adult, and I could feel the years of pain in her words when she finally spoke. "Mom and Dad." She trailed off, looking down at her hands. "They're struggling, badly. They've been asking for you, Lena. They said you were the only one who could help them, but—" She hesitated. "I don't know what to do. I know they hurt you. I know they pushed you away, and I know I didn't do anything to stop it, but they're falling apart." Her words hit me like a wave. The emotion she was carrying was palpable, raw, and I couldn't ignore it. But I couldn't ignore what they had done to me either. "Why should I help them?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "Why should I help people who tore my life apart, Emma? You saw it. You saw what they did. They didn't care about me. They still don't care. Now they're desperate, and you want me to come to the rescue?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "No, Lena, it's not like that. They're ashamed. They've been trying to fix things, but they don't know how. They're asking for you because they know they messed up. They need you. And I need you too." I stared at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to walk out, to leave this all behind again, to go back to my life, to forget the past and the people who had never once made me feel loved. But another part of me, the part I'd buried for so long, wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, my family was capable of change. But that didn't mean I had to forgive them. It didn't mean I had to give up everything I had fought for. "I'm not the same person I was when I left," I said quietly, almost to myself. "And I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive them for what they did. But that doesn't mean I can't hear them out. It doesn't mean I have to pretend like everything's okay." Emma nodded slowly, her relief palpable. "Thank you," she whispered. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. And no matter what, I knew I had the power to choose the path. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. It had been a few days since my conversation with Emma. She had left me with a lot to think about, and part of me still wasn't sure what to do. I was building something for myself, something real, and I had worked so hard to get here. The last thing I wanted was to let my family disrupt the stability I had finally found. But I knew Emma wasn't just asking for me to forgive them. She was asking for something else, something deeper. She wanted me to be part of their lives again. She wanted me to heal the rift, to fix what had been broken. I had spent years telling myself I didn't need them, that their rejection of me was a blessing in disguise. But now, sitting alone in my apartment, I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. I had built my life from nothing, but that didn't mean it was easy. I wasn't immune to the pain of being abandoned by those I loved most. As the days passed, I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for another message from Emma, or worse, waiting for them to contact me themselves. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to revisit the past and reopen old wounds, but I also knew that I had grown stronger than I had ever been before. The woman I was now was no longer the scared girl who had been thrown out. One afternoon, while I was working on an upcoming photo shoot, the doorbell rang. I froze, the sound jolting me out of my thoughts. Who could that be? I hadn't been expecting anyone. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it cautiously. The person standing there took me by surprise. Emma, yes, but with her were two unfamiliar figures. "Lena," Emma said quietly, her voice tentative. "This is Mom and Dad." I took a step back, heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't seen them in 8 years. I hadn't spoken to them since the day they kicked me out of their home, like I was nothing more than a stranger to them. And now, they were standing on my doorstep, their faces aged, their expressions full of regret. I stared at them for a long moment, unsure of what to do, how to feel. They hadn't changed, at least not in the way I had hoped. My mother, Celeste, looked smaller somehow, more fragile, her once immaculate appearance now a little less polished. My father, Magnus, stood with his arms crossed, his face hard, but with something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Guilt. I. We didn't know where else to go, my mother said, her voice thick with emotion. She glanced at my father before continuing, her hands wringing together. We've made a mess of things, Lena. A huge mess. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything they had done to me, after throwing me out, now they were here, standing in front of me, apologizing. It felt unreal, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive them. Not yet. I wasn't even sure if I could. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice steady but low, like I was trying to hold back the floodgates of anger and hurt that were threatening to spill out. You kicked me out without even a second thought. You wanted nothing to do with me. Now what? You need something from me? My father shifted uncomfortably, his voice low and hesitant. We didn't know what we were doing. We were angry. We thought we were doing what was best for you. Best for me? I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. How was leaving me with nothing best for me? I had to figure everything out on my own. I didn't even have a home. I was 16. I was just a kid. Emma looked from me to our parents, a silent plea in her eyes. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. Lena, please, we're asking for your help. We don't have anyone else. I don't know what to do, but I know that if we don't fix this, it's over. They're struggling so much. And they need you. I stared at them, at the three of them standing there, waiting for some kind of response. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut and walk away. They hadn't earned the right to ask anything of me. They had hurt me too deeply. But there was another part of me, something softer, something I had hidden away, that wanted to help, wanted to fix things. I let out a slow breath, the words I was about to say feeling foreign, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice tight. But I'll listen to what you have to say. The weight in the room shifted and Emma gave me a thankful look. The others remained silent, unsure of how to react. I'll listen, I repeated, more for myself than for them. But deep down, I knew that even if I couldn't change the past, there was a chance to shape the future. My future. The door closed behind me as I stepped back into my apartment, followed by my parents and Emma. It felt surreal, like I was living in someone else's life, like I wasn't really here. The silence between us was deafening. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to say or what they were expecting from me. We all sat around the small kitchen table, the room feeling smaller with each passing second. I could hear the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, the tension between us thick enough to choke on. My mother, Celeste, was the first to speak. Her voice was softer than I remembered, her usual sharpness dulled by years of regret. Lena, we know we can't change what we did, but we want you to know. We're sorry. We were wrong. I looked at her, my expression unreadable. The woman who had always been so poised, so perfect, was now broken. She looked smaller than I remembered, less powerful, less intimidating. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. We were wrong, she repeated, her voice cracking slightly. We didn't understand. We didn't see the pain we were causing you, and we can't undo it. But we're sorry. I wasn't sure how to respond. The apology didn't feel real. It felt rehearsed, like they had practiced it in front of a mirror. And I wasn't sure I could believe it. But I stayed quiet, my gaze fixed on the table, trying to keep my emotions in check. Then my father spoke. His voice was different, quieter than usual, almost broken. Lena, I know. I know I wasn't the father I should have been. I failed you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm asking for a chance. A chance to make things right if you'll let us. A chance. That word stuck in my mind. A chance. My heart twisted as I thought about everything I had been through, all the pain they had caused me. Could I really let them back in? Could I really let these people, these strangers who had once been my family, be part of my life again? But something inside me told me that I couldn't just shut them out forever. As much as I wanted to, as much as I felt betrayed, I realized that holding on to all this anger, all this bitterness, wasn't going to heal me. It was just going to keep me stuck in the past. I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive you, I said slowly, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm not sure if I can, but I'm willing to try. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. My father nodded, his expression solemn. That's all we're asking for. A chance. Emma, sitting quietly beside them, gave me a soft smile, relief flooding her face. I wasn't sure what this would mean for the future, but one thing was certain. I wasn't the same person I was when I left. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't afraid anymore, and whatever happened next, I would face it on my own terms. The days that followed were an emotional whirlwind. My family's reappearance stirred up old wounds that I had long tried to ignore. I told myself I wasn't ready to forgive them, but as much as I tried to resist, there was a part of me that still wanted to believe we could heal. Maybe it was the part of me that still yearned for their love, the part of me that still felt the sting of abandonment, despite everything I had worked for. But healing wasn't simple. It wasn't just about saying the right words or making amends. It was about trust. And trust wasn't something I could just give away. Emma kept in touch after that first meeting. We had coffee a few times, and though the awkwardness was still there was a sense of progress. She kept talking about how my parents had changed, how they were trying to be better, and how they wanted to make it right. She was persistent, but she never pressured me. I could tell she was walking a fine line between wanting to fix things and knowing that this wasn't her fight. My parents sent me a message a few days later. It was a simple invitation for dinner, just the four of us, no pressure. The message ended with, "We're not asking for anything. We just want to see you. We're sorry. Please, if you can." Part of me wanted to delete the message and forget about it. They had broken me once, and I wasn't sure I could risk letting them do it again, but another part of me, the one that had always tried to fix things, wanted to give them this one opportunity to prove themselves. So after thinking it over for days, I replied, agreeing to meet them. I couldn't ignore the pull to confront them, to see if there was something worth saving. If they really had changed, I'd know soon enough. The evening of the dinner came and I found myself standing in front of my bathroom mirror, hesitating. What was I doing? Why was I walking back into their world? Was I setting myself up for more disappointment? I took a deep breath, looked at my reflection, and saw a woman staring back who wasn't the scared, broken girl I had been when I left. She wasn't even the girl who had just survived. This woman was someone who had fought hard to create a life that was hers, and no matter what happened that night, I wasn't going to let them take that away from me. When I arrived at the restaurant, my parents were already seated. They looked different, older, maybe even a little nervous. My father stood up when I walked in, as though he wasn't sure whether he should hug me or just offer his hand. He settled for a hesitant handshake. "Lena," he said softly. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, sitting down across from them. The tension was thick. No one knew what to say. My mother sat beside my father, her hands folded neatly in front of her, her gaze fixed on me, waiting. It wasn't long before the awkward silence broke. My father cleared his throat and spoke first. "We know we have a lot to make up for. We're not asking you to forget what happened, but we want to show you that we're different now. We, we've been going to therapy. We've been working on ourselves, on understanding where we went wrong." I looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. They had gone to therapy? They had actually taken steps to change? I didn't know how to react. I wanted to believe him, but the skepticism was still there. The years of hurt, the abandonment, it all felt too raw to let go of so easily. "Therapy," I repeated softly. "That's a start, I guess." My voice was steady, but underneath I could feel the bitterness still clinging to my words. But it's not just about therapy. It's about showing up when it matters. It's about being there when I needed you and you weren't. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. My father reached out, placing his hand on top of mine. "We failed you, Lena, and for that we're sorry. We can't go back and change it, but we can do better now. Please give us a chance." I sat there in silence, processing their words. My mind was a whirlwind. Could I really let them back into my life? Could I truly forgive them after all the years of pain, of being abandoned, alone? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel right now, I said quietly. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if there's something worth rebuilding here. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step. I didn't know where it would lead, but I was taking it. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that I wasn't just doing this for them, I was doing it for me, to see if I could let go of the past without letting it control my future. The weeks that followed were a test. Every moment I spent around my family was a reminder of how much had been lost. I saw them trying. My mother, who used to be cold and distant, now reaching out with soft words and cautious smiles. My father, who had once been the pillar of authority in our house, now seemed more vulnerable, uncertain. It was clear they wanted to make things right, but that didn't erase the scars of the past. I tried to meet them halfway. I started accepting their invitations for dinner, and we spent small, quiet moments together. Nothing too intense, just enough to show that I wasn't running away anymore. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive them fully, but I was open to the possibility. The hardest part was seeing my younger sister Emma with them. It was almost as though I had never left. Watching her laugh with our parents, as though everything was fine. But it wasn't fine, not for me. One evening, we were having dinner at a local restaurant, and the conversation drifted to what had been happening in my life, how my photography career was going, how the exhibition had gone. I could feel the pride radiating from them, especially my mother. She wanted so badly to be proud of me, to show me that they were finally accepting who I had become. But there was something else, too. A quiet tension simmered beneath the surface, and I could feel it building as the night wore on. My father cleared his throat, his expression shifting. "Lena, we've been talking. We know we've asked a lot of you already, but there's one more thing." I glanced at Emma, who avoided my gaze, and then back to them. "What's this about?" My voice had become cautious, wary. "We need help," my father said, his voice suddenly small, vulnerable. "We're in trouble, Lena, financially, and we don't know who else to turn to, please." It hit me like a ton of bricks. This was the moment. After everything, after all the years of pain and distance, they were asking for help. They were asking me to save them. I felt the weight of their gaze, the desperation in their eyes. They were still the same people, the same parents who had once thought they could toss me aside. But now, they needed me. And that was the truth. "I'm not sure if I can help you," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "But I'll think about it. I can't promise anything." I knew that this was a test, a moment that would define the path forward. Could I forgive them? Could I really open my heart to them again? For the first time in years, I didn't have an answer, but I wasn't running away anymore. Maybe that was enough for now. The days after that conversation were quiet, but heavy with reflection. I spent countless hours thinking about what my parents had asked of me. The offer of financial help felt like the last test, one final hurdle that could either bring me closer to them or push me further away. The truth was, I didn't owe them anything. I had built my life without their help, without their love. But there was something inside me that still cared. I wasn't heartless. I wasn't the same scared girl I had been when I left, but I still had compassion. I wasn't sure if that made me strong or weak, but it was the truth. One evening, I sat in my apartment, staring at the phone in my hand, unsure of what to say. The message I had typed out seemed too final, too harsh, and I couldn't bring myself to send it. Instead, I took a deep breath and decided to pick up the phone. I called Emma first. "I can't help them," I said quietly. "Not in the way they want, but I'll help them find the resources they need. I'll point them in the right direction, but I can't carry their burden." There was a pause before Emma responded, her voice filled with relief. "Thank you, Lena. That's more than enough." When I finally sent the message to my parents, I was honest. I told them I couldn't be their savior, that I couldn't take on the weight of their mistakes. But I promised to help them navigate their situation in a way that felt true to me. They weren't happy, but they understood. In that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or pretending the past hadn't happened. It wasn't about fixing everything. It was about choosing to move forward, not for them, but for me. And in doing that, I set myself free. Walking away from my family wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. I had found peace, not in their approval, but in accepting that I didn't need it anymore. And for the first time in years, I felt truly liberated. The world was mine to conquer, and this time, I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me.